Hello everyone, the release of Natlan is finally upon us and Kachina is one of the 3 newest characters releasing in patch 5.0. As the first 4-star releasing in Natlan, her overall strength as a character may dictate how future Natlan 4-stars may perform compared to other 4-stars we have currently. And at the current moment, she's looking like an extremely useful support for many different kinds of teams. Considering everyone will be getting Kachina for free once you go through some of the story quests of Natlan, everyone will be able to take advantage of what Kachina has to offer. Even though Kachina hasn't changed very much during her beta cycle, I wanted to sum up all of the updated information you need to know about Kachina in one final guide. I will be explaining how Kachina works, the best ways to build her potential best teams, and analyzing her place in the meta in terms of overall strength and pull value. Pretty much everything you need to know with simple and practical explanations while also giving more detailed analysis that is backed by TC. Before we dive into Malani's kit, I think it's important to understand the special mechanic that will be present in all Natlan characters, Nightsoul. All of the releasing Natlan characters and some equipment like artifact sets will play around the Nightsoul mechanic whether in or out of combat, so I will explain the most important parts of Nightsoul that you need to know going into 5.0. Nightsoul has 3 main features. First, Nightsoul's Blessing. This is the primary effect of Nightsoul where the characters enter a special enhanced state, typically by using their elemental skill to access their main kits. While in the enhanced state, the Natlan characters gain a special Nightsoul gauge where they can either accumulate and spend Nightsoul points for extra damage, or just extend the duration of their enhanced state, which depends on the character. What Nightsoul's Blessing exactly does will be unique for each Natlan character. Second is Nightsoul Burst. All this does is when you have Natlan characters on your team, whenever a character does elemental damage, this effect will trigger. The more Natlan characters you have on your team, the shorter the trigger interval. The cooldown is shared party-wide, and currently with 1 Natlan character, the cooldown is 18 seconds, with 2, the cooldown is 12 seconds, and with 3 or more, the cooldown is 9 seconds. Proccing this effect will typically give some sort of damage buff to the Natlan characters, which is specified in one of their passive talents. The third feature is Nightsoul Transmission. This is an exploration feature. The Nightsoul enhanced states for each Natlan character can be used in the overworld for faster traveling. While exploring specific areas of Natlan, Nightsoul Transmission can trigger, allowing you to stay in the enhanced state longer and can unlock special exploration movement abilities specific to each character. With a proper understanding of Nightsoul, let's finally talk about Kachina. Kachina is a defense scaling 4-star Geo polearm user that ascends with Geo damage. Kachina has the choice of being played primarily on-field or off-field. However, the off-field playstyle will be the most effective way to utilize her kit. Thus, Kachina serves as an off-field support for teams, and just like the other releasing Natlan characters, she has potent overworld exploration capabilities. First, her normal talent. Her attack animations with the polearm are quite unique, but like the other Natlan characters releasing, you won't be using these, so you can ignore leveling her normal talent. The majority of Kachina's kit revolves around her elemental skill. Her skill involves her little drill car called Turbo Twirly. You can choose to either press or hold the skill initially. Pressing her skill places Turbo Twirly on the field. Holding the skill instead will immediately allow Kachina to ride Turbo Twirly around. Either way, Kachina enters Nightsoul's Blessing and gains 60 Nightsoul points. You can switch between riding Turbo Twirly or placing it on the field by pressing her skill again. Riding Turbo Twirly is Kachina's method of overworld exploration. This will continually consume Nightsoul points and you'll have to stop driving once you reach 0. In addition, while riding Turbo Twirly, you can press normal attack on Kachina to perform a ground pound, damaging enemies around you, which consumes some Nightsoul points. This is Kachina's way of doing damage on field. However, her most effective playstyle would just be through pressing her skill, placing Turbo Twirly on the field and swapping out. When Turbo Twirly exists independently on the field, it will periodically create shockwaves, dealing damage to enemies around it and consuming some Nightsoul points. At C0, Turbo Twirly can attack a total of 6 times, whether Kachina rides it herself or just places it on the field. And lastly, Turbo Twirly is considered a Geo construct. Kachina's skill can be buffed by using her Elemental Burst. 18-second cooldown, 70 energy cost. Her burst does a nuke of AoE damage and creates a field which lasts 12 seconds. While Turbo Twirly is in this field, the AoE of its attacks are larger, and when Kachina is riding it, her movement speed is increased. Using the burst will also reposition Turbo Twirly if it's already placed on the field. Because Kachina's skill is important and the 18-second cooldown of her burst is similar to the 20-second cooldown of her skill, you will want to burst every rotation to ensure you get a buffed Turbo Twirly every rotation. Next, Kachina's passive talents. With her A1, whenever a Nightsoul Burst is triggered, Kachina will gain 20% Geo damage for 12 seconds. Remember that Nightsoul Burst is triggered when a Natlan character in the party deals elemental damage. Although Kachina can proc Nightsoul Burst herself, she won't be able to trigger it fast enough to maintain full uptime of this buff unless she's paired with another Natlan character. But in teams where Kachina is the only Natlan character, a little bit of uptime is nice nonetheless. Kachina's A4 passive increases the damage of Turbo Twirly by 20% of Kachina's defense. Kachina's damage was already defense scaling, so this is just some nice additional extra damage. Lastly, like the other Natlan characters, her special passives are pure purely exploration based. In summary, while exploring certain areas of Natlan, Kachina can trigger Nightsoul transmission to extend the duration of her turbo twirly riding. In addition, she can mark Natlan resources on your map and restores 20 stamina when collecting them. Lastly, Kachina also consumes 90% less stamina when climbing walls with turbo twirly in Natlan. A 4-star character's constellations can be very kit to fighting, so let's go over them. C1 allows Kachina to absorb nearby crystallized shards whenever she mounts or dismounts turbo twirly, similar to how Navia can absorb crystallized shards when she holds her skill. In addition, whenever any party member picks up a shield, Kachina will get 3 energy, and this has a cooldown of 5 seconds. Pretty nice constellation for her energy requirements. With Kachina C2, using her burst will immediately grant Kachina Nightsoul's blessing and spawn turbo twirly if it's not on the field. However, if it is already on the field, Kachina will regain 20 Nightsoul points, which translates to 2 extra hits from turbo twirly. C3 increases Kachina's skill talent level by 3. C4 gives the active character extra defense depending on how many enemies are within the field created by Kachina's elemental burst. C5 increases Kachina's burst talent level by 3. And lastly, C6 allows Kachina to deal extra AoE geo damage whenever a shield is replaced or destroyed, which has a cooldown of 5 seconds. This is clearly designed around crystallized shields, which will happen with Kachina's off-field damage proccing crystallize. So C6 is just some nice extra damage. Overall, Kachina is not a 4-star that is heavily dependent on constellations, which is great. Sure, her C6 is her best constellation in terms of a damage increase, but Kachina's personal damage isn't too important. Her best constellation, in my opinion, is her C1 to ease her ER requirements, though C2 can also be nice to either skip using her skill entirely or use the burst while the skill is active to gain 2 extra hits. But even at C0, Kachina will still be able to fulfill her role in teams. And that is Kachina's kit in a nutshell. Talent priority is simple, skill over burst. Her gameplay rotation is very simple as a support in a team. You skill, then burst, then switch out to your other characters. Quick, easy, and requires very little field time. With C2, you can consider not using Kachina's skill and just use her elemental burst to refresh turbo twirly. Kachina's best weapon options are very straightforward. In terms of 5-star weapons, if you really want to build a full damage focused Kachina, then you could use some polearms like Homa or Jade Spear just for the crit, but as a normal off-field sub DPS and support, Kachina's 4-star weapon options just look generally better. Favonius Lance is, as always, a great support weapon with the extra particle generation, and the ER substat is great because Kachina does want to burst every rotation. Because of its supportive capabilities, I consider Fav Lance her best weapon option. For a damage-oriented weapon, Deathmatch is a fine option with its crit rate. For a free-to-play damage option, you can use the new Natlan craftable polearm. It's pretty much made for Kachina since it synergizes with her elemental skill and gives a ton of defense. And with the web event, you'll be getting a copy of it for free, so you don't have to worry about getting the new Natlan billets. Next, Kachina's artifact options. Because Kachina is a Natlan off-field sub DPS, she can use the new Natlan support artifact set, Scroll of the Ember City's Hero. The 2-piece will give her extra energy when Nightsoul burst is triggered, which helps ER requirements a bit. But the 4-piece is the sole reason this artifact is so good. When the character wearing this artifact set triggers an elemental reaction, your team gets 12% damage bonus for the elements involved in the triggered reaction for a period of time. For instance, if a Hydro Crystallize is triggered by Kachina with this set, the team will get a buff to both Hydro and Geo elemental damage. If you then trigger Pyro Crystallize afterwards, you will refresh the duration of the Geo damage buff as well as additionally gain Pyro damage bonus. If the character that holds this set triggers this while during Nightsoul's Blessing, aka a Natlan character, the total damage buff increases to 40 damage %, which is pretty insane. And as long as Kachina continually triggers Crystallize, this team buff will be permanent. Because of the value of this massive damage buff, this is realistically Kachina's only artifact option. For artifact stats, she is a pure defense scaler, so defense hourglass or energy recharge hourglass if you're struggling with her energy requirements, Geo damage or defense goblet, then crit circlet. For substats, prioritize enough ER first, then crit, then defense %. For ER requirements, I would recommend around 130% ER for Geo teams, but around 150% ER or even more if Kachina is your only Geo character on the team. Lastly, let's discuss Kachina's best team options. For Kachina to bring a lot of value to a team, she must be able to take advantage of the new 4-piece support artifact set to grant a team-wide 40% elemental damage bonus. To do this, she must be able to trigger crystallizes with turbo twirly. Thus, you won't be using her in teams focusing on mainly Dendro and Anemo DPSs such as Kanich and Wanderer teams, since Geo doesn't react with either Dendro or Anemo. But with the other remaining elements, Kachina can flourish. Because her skill is considered a Geo construct, she synergizes very well with Chiori to activate her second doll. This duo is a pretty good double Geo core that is pretty versatile. You can pair this duo with another 2 characters of the same element such as double Pyro or double Hydro, and in this way, everyone benefits from the 40 damage % buff from the new Natlan artifact set. Kachina can even do this without Chiori serving as the single Geo character in an otherwise mono element comp where she provides the entire team with that damage % buff buff, along with a bit of extra personal damage. Kachina's teams don't have to focus on a single element, however. Much like how Zhongli can be used as a general support for many teams, Kachina can serve as a versatile support as well. For instance, Kachina can be used as the last slot in a Milani Burn Vape team as a strong buffer for Milani's damage. As long as Kachina's Geo application doesn't completely screw up a team's desired reaction, and you can trigger Crystallize with the desired element you want to buff, Kachina can be an amazing option for that team. As a Geo character, it makes sense for Kachina to be good in a Geo-centric team, and she is, especially for Navia. A standard Navia team is Navia, Chiori, Xiangling, and Bennett, which is already solid. However, the team does lack damage buffs. With Kachina and the Natlan support set, she can replace Chiori and provide that invaluable 40% damage bonus to the entire team. According to pre-release calcs done by jstern, Kachina is actually better than Chiori in this slot for Navia. She doesn't have to replace Chiori though. You can put all 3 Geo units together as long as the 3rd unit provides off-field elemental application like Yelan, so you can trigger Crystallize. And again, the entire team will get that damage buff. For the other Geo carries that scale off defense like Ito and Noelle, Kachina can work similarly. However, Kachina isn't as good in these teams because these teams already had a team buffer with Goro, who will perform better than Kachina, especially at C6. To conclude this Kachina guide, I wanted to share my analysis on her place in the meta in terms of overall strength and pull value. Most of Kachina's value comes from her ability to give a team-wide 40 elemental damage percent with Scroll of the Ember City's hero. And all she has to do to share this buff is plop her skill down, switch out, and trigger Crystallize with the desired elements off-field. Due to how good this buff is, to me, Kachina is one of the most valuable 4-stars in the game. Not only is she able to elevate Geo teams like Navia, she is able to act as a versatile and general support as well, similar to Zhongli. Like I said before, as long as Kachina's Geo application doesn't completely screw up a team's desired reaction, and you can trigger Crystallize with the desired element you want to buff, Kachina can be a great option for that team. On top of that, Kachina does provide a bit of personal damage. At C6, Kachina's damage is similar to a C0 albedo. It's nothing game breaking, but it's nice nevertheless, making Kachina a decent sub TPS on top of being a solid buffer. And the best part is that she's being given out to everyone for free, so everyone can build and use her. Yes, the new artifact set plays a huge part in carrying Kachina's strength as a character. Without 4-piece scroll, Kachina wouldn't be a very good character. However, utilizing strong artifact sets plays a big role in a character's kit and meta strength. Animo characters and Viridis and Venerer are a premier example of this. So Kachina being able to utilize 4-piece scroll is just a part of what defines her overall kit. The biggest downside to Kachina is that she will likely be overshadowed in the near future. In 5.0, only she will be able to utilize this set to its full effect, making her very valuable as a versatile buffer. However, as more Natlan characters are released who are off-field supports that can utilize 4-piece scroll, they will very likely replace Kachina as the best option. Her main competitor is looking to be Shilonen, who will likely just be a better version of Kachina. However, even if Kachina becomes replaced as the most optimal option, she will still be a viable option in the teams that you can use her in, and she will still be extremely valuable in Imaginarium Theater. With its expansion and difficulty increase, we will need more built good characters in order to challenge this expanded endgame. With Kachina being a great general support, she will be a great addition to the roster whenever Geo is one of the chosen elements. Overall, I'm glad that Kachina as a Geo 4-star is looking to be pretty meta relevant and have a lot of value in team building. That's everything I wanted to cover about Kachina. I hope this guide and analysis was helpful to you all in giving you a better understanding of everything related to Kachina. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video and want to see more guides like this on future characters. Also, I have a small Discord server, so if you just want to discuss about Genshin, ask me any questions, or just chill, feel free to join. For all of you planning on wishing for Constellations, I wish you all the best of luck on your Kachina pools.